Hello, and welcome to this session of Talking Adoption. And today we are looking at Black adoption. I'm Grace Gomez, and I am the Adopter Diversity Recruitment Officer at PACT Charity, and I'm based in the Reading office. And I'm joined by Shahana and Rebecca, who will introduce themselves. So, Shahana.
Hi, my name's Shahana. I'm a placements officer, and I'm usually based in London.
Okay, Rebecca.
And I'm Rebecca. I am a senior social worker from our London assessment and referral team.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for joining us. So, Shahana, why is it important that we discuss specifically the adoption of children where they are Black and from a Black, African and white British mixed background?
So it's incredibly important that we have this discussion, because what we know is that Black children are more likely to be looked after at 7% and less likely to be adopted at 2%, compared with the share of the under 18-year-old population at 5%. So we know that both historically and currently, statistics show that Black children wait longer for an adoptive family than any other ethnic group. Mm-hmm. And these are statistics according to the National Adoption Week, which was 18th of October. And we know that waiting for these children can increase the trauma that they've already experienced.
Yeah.
So we're really looking for families who can reflect their identity, ethnicity, and their lived experiences in the UK. So it's really important that we keep talking and discussing and encouraging adopters of that background to approach us and look into adoption to see if they can consider it.
Thank you. That's great. And so can you tell us a little bit about the types of children from that background who are waiting for their permanent homes?
Okay, so the children who are waiting we're looking at both single and sibling groups. So single children and sibling groups of 2s and 3s and sometimes even 4s. So many of the children that we are seeing at the moment with the single children may be 3 and above. And they come from where either both parents are of the same Black background, so both, for instance, Black Caribbean or Black African, but also looking at children where one parent is of a Black background, but so either African or Caribbean, and the other parent is white British. So some of these children will have different levels of needs. So some might be around their uncertainty in terms of their health and development, and some where they've got more diagnosed conditions. So they'll have maybe a diagnosed disability or a medical condition.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And so do you have any facts and figures about how long they wait in a care system?
Okay, so these statistics are from the Department of Education from 2020. So we know that white British children wait on average for 919 days, compared to 996 days for children where one parent is of a white British background and the other parent is of a Black background. But we know that, for instance, for Black boys, particularly of an African ethnicity, they wait the longest wait at 1,302, so significantly higher waiting. And we know that boys, particularly of a Black background, wait the longest to be adopted.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. That's great. Okay, so Rebecca, what type of people are PACT looking for to offer permanent homes to these children?
So in terms of the type of people PACT are looking for, first and foremost, applicants would need to be 21 years of age and older. There is no upper age limit. They'd also need to be domiciled in the UK. So in saying that essentially means a resident within the UK, someone who's settled, and someone who's planning to stay in the UK for a long-term period. In terms of the practical elements, so for example, in terms of your home, we would require that you have one room available for the child you would be planning to adopt. So if you are considering siblings, that would be one room per child, and you have the space essentially to be able to care for each child. You would also need to be able to take 1 year's adoption leave. So whether you are a single applicant or within a couple, taking at least 12 months would be a minimum requirement in terms of caring for a child in your care. We'd also look at somebody who has a good support network, so exploring who's in your family network, who's in your friend network, who'd be able to support you, whether it be for emergency purposes or for emotional support. And we also generally require people to be financially stable. So that doesn't necessarily mean that people need to be rich. However, we would require that there is a reliant source of income that they're receiving to be able to provide the needs of a child in their care. We also look at people generally being healthy, and that would be explored further with applicants through a medical assessment that's undertaken in the initial stages of their application. And essentially somebody or a couple who are emotionally resilient, so people who are able to support the varying needs of children who have come from the care system in relation to traumatic events that they might have experienced or emotional support that children might require placed in their care.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Thanks. And so people can be put off by the process because I've heard it's got a reputation of being difficult. Can you just explain the process of adoption to us, please?
So at PACT, we would say in terms of the process, we would describe it more as thorough rather than difficult. And the reason it is thorough is to ensure that in terms of the applicants who come forward, that they're able to meet the needs of the children who are waiting for adoptive homes. In terms of the process, there's 2 stages. So there's stage 1 in that once applicants enter into the adoption process, it would be a case of undertaking paperwork with applicants during a 2-month period. So essentially what that means is that we would seek things such as employment references, DBS police checks. We would look at voluntary experiences, if they've worked with children previously. We would also look at medical assessments we'd require for that to be undertaken in stage 1, as well as applicants being able to produce documents around chronologies of their employment history, education history, family tree and their support network, which in total would take a period of 2 months from when they first enter into stage 1. Once that's completed and that's successful, you then enter into stage 2, which is essentially the assessment process. So in stage 2, it would be a social worker, potentially from my team in London or in Reading or in Brighton, who would arrange a number of appointments with the applicant to go through every aspect of their lives in terms of their education, employment, and so forth, as well as discuss with them like their understanding of the needs of children who would be placed into their care, and to discuss their ability to be able to meet the needs of children within their care. Stage 2 lasts for a period of 4 months. And from at the end of all these appointments being undertaken, a report would be collated, which is called a prospective adopters report, and it'd be presented to a panel, which is managed by PACT. However, they are independent from PACT, who will then come to a determination as to whether or not the applicants who have come forward would be successfully approved as prospective adopters. So that's in essence the process of adoption.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so Shahana, another misconception is that you need to be wealthy to adopt. What do you say to that one?
Not at all. What we're really looking at is, how financially stable and secure you are. So it doesn't matter about what you've got coming in necessarily. So we're, what we want is that, you'll be able to meet the cost of a child or children joining your family, both not just in the short term, but in the long term. But also what's really crucial is that year of adoption leave that, you will take, and being able to manage that without too much additional extra financial strain or worry. It allows, for you to be able to bond with your child and attach with them and give them that initial crucial time, that first year. And so, we would look at things like, just making sure that you've got your outgoings and incomings and that you've not got too much debt that you need to manage. So absolutely not.
Thank you. That's great. And so, Rebecca, is there any financial support offered to people who adopt?
Yes. So first and foremost, we would ask applicants to explore that in terms of the policies within whatever type of employment that they're doing, because different workforces offer different types of financial support within the initial stages of someone going on adoption leave. Alongside that, we always advise for applicants to research into statutory adoption pay, where there's guidance about that on government websites, which would outline specifically for adopters when going on adoption leave how much they would be entitled to throughout the whole 12-month period. As well as that, in terms of a child or children that might be placed with an applicant, different local authorities would assess the situation in terms of the child's needs and whether they can provide financial support to an applicant who would be taking on the care of an adopted child, as well as potentially a settling-in grant, which is a one-off payment to adopters to support initial costs, whether that be, for example, a bed or a cot or a mattress, etc. However, that is dependent on the local authority, and it's decided on a case-by-case basis.
That's fantastic.
Essentially.
That's good to know. Thank you. So, Hannah, another myth is about being a homeowner. Do you need to own your own home?
So again, no, you can adopt if you are in rented accommodation. But what we ask is that is a secure tenancy and a stable tenancy. And both for homeowners and those that live in rented accommodation, we ask that you are settled in your home and that you have no plans to move in the immediate future. So the reasons we ask about that is that because you're going to be assessed on the area that you're living in, with your support circle and on the home. So that's important. But it's also really important for when a child or children join you to provide them with kind of a stable, secure home at the point where you're bonding with them, and because they've already experienced quite a lot of loss. So that's important. We ask that either the home that you own or rent in is in a good quality condition, and that there is a minimum of a spare bedroom for a child, and that for that bedroom to be a good size, where there's like space for a bed, a table, storage, as well as a good playing area for the child.
Fantastic, thank you. And do you need to be married? That's another question that people ask, and sometimes people have concerns around their sexuality. What's the answer?
So again, I mean, adoption is very inclusive in the UK, and so we're looking for adopters of all walks of backgrounds and different experience and skills. So no, you don't need to be married. We do ask that if you're in a partnership that you've been living together for a minimum of 2 years, so cohabitation. But also you can be a single adopter, both male and female, and also from the LGBTQ plus community as well.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, so Rebecca, can you tell us what kind of support that PACT offers to its adopters, please?
So in terms of support, PACT offer a wealth of different options in terms of applicants who come forward. We host coffee mornings, which at the moment take place online on a monthly basis, for applicants to meet with other adopters, whether you're in the stage 2 process or thereafter you've had a child placed with you. So that could be a nice way to meet new people, especially new adopters as well, who you can connect with. We also host monthly online support groups, and those are run by our social workers in terms of supporting families where children have been placed. And we cover various topics monthly in terms of supporting adoptive families with potential different scenarios that might arise after a child is placed with you, whether that's life story or difficulties in behaviours, and providing people different tools in terms of how we can best support that. We also have adoption champions, who are a group of people with a wealth of experience, in that they have been adopters themselves. They may have adopted a number of children, had them in their care from childhood up until adulthood, and they are a group of people who are able to support adopters who might be in the early stages or facing difficulties in terms of children that they're caring for, and they want to touch base with somebody that they can relate to. So we have adoption champions who we can link prospective adopters with. We also have our Strengthening Families team, which is a group of social workers who have been therapeutically trained to support prospective adopters for any reason, whether big or small. So we have that available as well in terms of support. We also have our PACT service, which is essentially a pool of various professionals, whether it be occupational therapists, psychotherapists, clinical psychologists, and so forth, who we can refer our families to if they required additional support after the placement of a child or children in their care. And then in terms of other elements, I mean, we host yearly fun days, which is just a general celebration of families where children have been placed, whether they are visiting farms or a local area where PACT hosts a local activity for the day. We also have the Adopters Hub, which is an online website that PACT has specifically built themselves, which we provide access to our prospective adopters to, which has a wealth of knowledge in terms of podcasts and websites of various different topics that affect adopted placements or children who have been adopted or parents who have just become newly adopted, and all our adopters have access to that to be able to touch base with and be able to research specifically for their family. So yeah, we have a lot of things to offer at PACT in terms of support.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Johanna, is there any specific support on offer in terms of schooling?
So at PACT, we have an educational lead, Amy, who has the experience of adoption herself, and also is an experienced educational professional who's worked in schools across the UK. And what Amy does is offer advice either to and offer training to either the school where a child or a PACT child attends, can help teachers understand the backgrounds of the children who have been adopted and what they may have experienced, and some sort of support in terms of kind of how you can support that child. But she also works with the parents to try and help them support and find the right school for their child or children. And generally in terms of the support that's provided for children who are adopted is that they have a priority in terms of applying for school places. So they can apply to any school that parents feel would be helpful for their child and will have a good understanding of an adopted child. But also there is something called the pupil premium, which is paid for every adopted child, and it's to support them through their school life, but it can also be used for their peers or within the school as well.
Thank you very much. And finally, if people, I think, wanted to find out more, where should they go for help?
So in terms of where they should go for help, we have a wonderful website that's available that people can Google, PACT Adoption, where it has a lot of information in terms of the support we provide, telephone numbers and so forth. They can touch base with our inquiries team, which again, our telephone number would be on our PACT website. Or you can attend an information event whereby you'd be able to hear firsthand from a social worker or a team manager, again, about the processes, what it entails, and answer any of your questions that you might have.
Fantastic. That's great. So thank you for joining us, Rebecca and Johanna. That's been really informative. Thank you. So as Rebecca said, there's lots more information on our website. You can scan the QR code. Thank you.